Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to be my look at this month in Dragalia Lost for the month of November 2020. In case you're not aware, around the beginning of every month, the game's director, Yuji Okada, puts out a notice post essentially telling us what's to come for the month ahead, as well as often teasing general updates that are planned for Dragalia Lost's future. So we'll be reading through his notice post today, and I'll give my commentary and impressions on it, and that'll pretty much do it for this video. In case you're wondering, I have not done any extra summoning for Lapis or Gala Poseidon at this point. I've done my free daily tenfolds, have not gotten any 5 stars yet, so I'm building up quite the pity rate, and I am still considering waiting until the last day of that showcase to summon. Well, here we are on this month in Dragalia Lost, so I guess let's get into this. Of course, Director Okada always starts off the same way. He thanks us for playing Dragalia Lost, he introduces himself, and this time around he starts off by talking about the 2nd anniversary as well. So technically the 2nd anniversary was at the end of September, but with all the events that happened, it really felt like October was effectively the entire anniversary celebration, like we had a whole anniversary month. But I do think things have started to kind of slow down and wind down now as far as all of that anniversary goodness. In any case, Okada says, I think most players will agree that one of the most impactful and exciting of all the 2nd anniversary events is the daily free tenfold summon, which is why we extended its duration as thanks for your passion and support during this monumental update. This extension means that you can perform a tenfold summon for free once per day on the Gala Dragalia Summon Showcase going on now, so I hope you use this chance to make your roster even stronger. Alright, I think that they kind of did this in response to some of the concerns about the currency issues with the Wyrmprint and summon tickets having been reduced in the most recent facility event, and I've definitely felt the crunch at this point as well, especially when it comes to Eldwater. I bottomed out on Eldwater, have almost none left, so I can relate to where you're at, even as somebody who has a lot more resources than most, having played since day one and done a few whaling sessions in my day. So yeah, there's certainly a crunch here. Having extra summons is very much appreciated. But besides that, Director Okada says, speaking of which, Gala Reborn Poseidon appears in this Gala Dragalia, and he happens to be the first water-attuned Gala dragon in the game's history. To learn more about how this particular dragon came into being, be sure to keep up to date with the latest story developments by playing Chapter 16 of the main campaign. Not content to let Gala Reborn Poseidon make history all on his own, Lapis is also featured, and she's our very first water-attuned Manicaster adventurer. What's more, her Manicaster is the first to sport the Rapid Fire mode, which lets her unleash a barrage of shots with her Force Strike. You can get to know Lapis better in the Phantom's Ransom facility event going on right now. Play through this event to earn a facility that boosts the stats of bow and Manicaster wielding adventurers. Okay, so no acknowledgement about the relative underperformance of Gala Poseidon compared to some of the other Elements Gala dragons. I expected there to be a way to upgrade Gala Poseidon because if you look at Gala Poseidon, his modifiers for damage when you're in the dragon form, I believe they're even worse than regular Poseidon. Now that's more than offset by the fact that compared to regular Poseidon, Gala Poseidon has much better strength and a much better aura for damage dealing, much better abilities. But yeah, his skills and his damage modifiers on his basic attacks are pretty abysmal. Nevertheless, just having that good of a dragon aura or a set of abilities, it still puts him above Siren and in some cases Nimbus for a lot of characters on the DPS rankings, at least in simulation. But I do think that there's still a clear place for Gauna and Krenna, so Gala Reborn Poseidon hasn't been the killer of all the other dragons in its element like Gala Mars sort of was, and even Gala Thor has kind of balanced out with 2.0 and the buffs to Daikokuten, and Cat Sheath is kind of balanced out by the virtue of how long Kaiyan can last on Master difficulty. Of course, if you're using Veronica's and Mitsubas, it's not going to last very long. Cat Sheath's still the best, but in longer fights you can use other alternatives pretty well. So Gala Reborn Poseidon, I'm sure he's out there being used in Master Twins and Expert Twins, doing a pretty good job. But one of the more disappointing Gala dragons that we've gotten, I would say. And Lapis, I've heard good things about. She seems really fun to play. The Rapid Fire style seems like it's going to be a treat to actually get to charge up 4 strikes and then just unleash a flurry of attacks. That seems like that's going to be really entertaining. Although I haven't gotten the impression that she's like meta influential or meta defining in any way. So I don't think this is a must summon showcase here. That being said, I think like you want to go for this more so for Lapis, honestly, than Gala Reborn Poseidon. Because Gala Reborn Poseidon, one day he's going to be back on a remix, most likely. We saw Mars come back, we saw Cat Sheath come back, and we haven't seen Thor come back yet, but we predict or assume that that's going to happen if these remixes continue, right? But the same will probably happen for Gala Reborn Poseidon eventually. Lapis, it might be a really long time before she is at an appearance rate up on a summon showcase. Outside of like a Water's Blessing, which is a pretty low value banner for more enfranchised players, I don't imagine her getting a rate up anytime soon. So she might be the more coveted thing here in the long run, because eventually you can get this Poseidon, you can use Gaun and Krenna. A lot of characters can use Nimbus if you're shapeshifting. That's not a bad dragon to be using if you have some amount of critical rate. So yeah, I don't know. This Gala, it's a tough call. If they had put Karina and had put Giovanni on here, it would be like a slam dunk. As things are, it's kind of a tough call. I'm not sure that I'm going to go for it, except for the fact that I kind of want to try out and test Lapis. So I only have about enough to spark one time, and depending on what else happens in November, I could really want those resources at that point. So we'll continue reading on to learn more about what happens in November. You may notice something special about this event's theme music. In creating a song fit for an opera-themed event, we thought it only natural that it be sung by the stars of the show themselves. Lapis and Karina and their Japanese voice actors agreed. I did love the music in this, did a reaction / story read where I played through the dual trial as well a couple days ago, and I'm glad I did because there was a cut-in scene of Karina singing that was really beautiful. I'm glad I got the chance to react to that and listen to it. Yeah, I like this event. Not really as Halloween related as I would have expected, but I did like it and enjoy it. It feels like it has an unresolved thread of what is the relationship or history between Lapis and Karina, and when will they cross paths again, so I like that aspect of it. As for plans for this month, the Adventure Opera Karina and the Dragon Giovanni, who appear in the Phantom's Ransom event, will also appear in a summon showcase starting at 12 AM November 4th, 2020. For further details, like their stats and skills, please see the corresponding in-game notification. Okay, so kinda knew this was happening. We expected them to be playable because there was a trailer, I believe, that went out, I think it was in Taiwan, the trailer, that had both Karina and Giovanni, but not Lapis and not Gala Reborn Poseidon, suggesting that these two had their own banner together. So there was a strong feeling or hunch that they would probably have their own banner together. I mean, not all four, but like Karina and Giovanni would have one together. And indeed they do. Karina presumably going to be a shadow element bow. Giovanni kind of looks like a water dragon, but he might be shadow element. He might be water element also. As for Karina, I only say that because of Shadow Blight as an affliction. I think that kind of sounds like it's going to be in the shadow element. Karina, definitely a bow, I presume, because of the bow tablets in the event treasure trade, but didn't really pay attention to the elemental orbs, so that's why I'm leaning towards shadow, but we could double check on that. And yeah, I don't know. This is going to really depend for me on what Giovanni looks like. Karina, I like Karina, but I think the fact that I was a Pietro fan and they're both water axes, Karina couldn't take that like #1 water axe spot in my heart. So at some level, I feel like I'm more loyal to Pietro than Karina. So I'm not like crazy about Karina to where I would feel the need to summon for an alt of her. Having said that, I do like the bow weapon type, and that's what I've chosen to specialize in as far as my weapon bonuses. So that could be a reason I want to summon for Karina. But I expect these to be permanent, just like Lapis. So I don't know. I mean, if I skip this showcase, I might skip the next showcase also, just so I can save up for whatever else happens in November and potentially toward the end of the year. Because the Wyrmite income, if it continues to be as dry as it is, like I'm sitting at 38k now, I guess, And I was like at 36 after the last Gala remix, so it hasn't really gone up by very much. Like, it's going to be a long time, I feel, before I accumulate enough for another spark, like 72k. And for that reason, I might just be better off waiting it out. I'm not really pressed or like struggling to clear any content right now, so I might wait it out. Besides Karina and Giovanni, we also got some news about Renee and Lara Noah, so their mana spirals will be unlocked. Good to see. These are characters that could use a little bit more shine. Lara Noah is a favorite of mine. I did a lot of my expert twins play using her. It feels really satisfying to use her first skill because it hits 14 times, so you can quickly accumulate a combo. And I was combining it with stuff like UA's shared skill, which increases your critical rate, and just seeing all those critical hits is really enjoyable. Otherwise, with Lara Noah, she's actually a little bit better used and applied as more of a buff bot because of the buffs that she can provide the team through shared skills and the proximity buff that she provides on her second skill, which increases skill haste. You can kind of do like a turbo Lara Noah build right now with Gauna and Krenna, where since she's increasing her own skill haste, you're getting skill charge off of Gauna and Krenna. You can really rapidly power up everybody's skills in your team, and Lara Noah's in particular, to buff everyone. It's a pretty satisfying way to play. As for Renee, I think is a character I haven't built yet, but she's a good backliner. She has the dagger co-ability of critical rate and the chain co-ability of buff time. Besides that, Renee also has a shared skill that can cause bog and reduce enemy defense. So there are reasons you would want to invest into her. Interesting that she's getting a mana spiral now. We haven't gotten a mana spiral for Ramona or Reyna, and they don't really need one. Compared to Renee, she definitely needs one more. But to complete the sisters trio, like, maybe they'll get one eventually. Maybe around the time of our new difficulty for Volk's Wrath, maybe they could get one then. It is interesting that they're just giving them to Renee and Lara Noah, and like they got called out specifically. Obviously in the past we've gotten like much more massive mana spiral updates at times, and in particular it's kind of random that they're water element because we have Master Difficulty of Tartarus' Wrath coming out this month, as well as the next difficulty of Volk's Wrath presumably coming out this month. So yeah, kind of odd that Renee and Lara Noah are chosen, but two characters I know have a lot of fans out there. So if you are a fan of one of those characters, hopefully this will make them more viable. I think both of these characters, despite being a little better in 2.0, like they're still not that great in the water element. The water element is kind of funny. Historically, like, it's gotten dominated by a lot of quad comps for whatever reason, and other elements have had this as well, like light enemies faced quadruple Gala for a long time. But with water, it was like 4 Fjorms, and then 4 Pipples, and now 4 Karinas. I don't know what it is about the water element, but that does seem to be a thing, which is very different, obviously, when you're soloing, because you can't just bring 4 of the same character. But yeah, hopefully these would be able to like make it in to where it's like a 3 Karina, 1 Lara Noah comp or something, just to make things a little bit more open and interesting. But I'm really not too optimistic, just in the sense that like it's already so efficient to clear flame content with the current slate of water characters that basically I think that only players who are really big fans of Renee or Lara Noah are going to feel a need to invest into these spirals. Let's continue on. After the Phantom's Ransom facility event has ended, a defensive event will begin. The stage is set and lands to the north, but you'll have to wait and see who the actors are. Okay, so finally heading to North Grastia. That's pretty cool. When you think about the north, you probably think about the city of Grams and the Ilian Church, the northern branch of the church that's housed there. So we know of several characters who we haven't really seen make an appearance yet, such as Gabriel. We know of Basilius. Basically all the characters associated with Nevin and Pinon's event that we didn't actually get to meet in person. Those are all possibilities. We know about Finlorda and the Fairy Kingdom in the north. That is another possibility. We know Nedric is roaming about the north, and it's a vast and diverse country compared to the south. And his whole gang of the Agito as well as Zethia are in the north, so that's a possibility. And then we also know about the Well, the Windswept gang. So Joachim, Victor, Kirsty, and Noelle. So maybe we see their homeland and they are the stars of this event. It's interesting because there's so many characters who their original incarnation, it didn't get an event, but yet they have to sell banners, right? So these defensive battles and onslaught events, they more often feature alts than they do the original characters. In some cases, like with Nadine and Linnea, those are original characters, but they'll often mix in alts. So if we're focusing an event on Joachim, Kirsty, Victor, and Noelle, like, would they really give us a banner that just has Victor and Kirsty at 5-star and Joachim and Noelle at 4-star and like use the original characters? Because we never got an event like that, and that would be a good event. The problem is they've been in the summoning pool for so long, in the permanent pool, that would players actually spend money and go for them? So I feel like at some level, like, they have to keep introducing new characters, so the defensive and onslaught events often will feature alts. And for that reason, I'm not sure what they'll do with this. Like, part of me thinks it's about time we find out more about the Windswept crew, but I could see it being about the church or about another group in the north as well. Apparently it's a diverse place, so it could be really anything. My big question on this is, are we going to actually see new maps? Because I thought that we're going to ride out the defensive battles. Once we got the first defensive battle event, I thought that that one used the Fire Emblem crossover part 1 maps. The second one used the maps from the second Fire Emblem crossover, and they updated some of the lower difficulty maps to make them more linear so that auto battle would work on them. But now they've used the Fire Emblem Collab 1 and Collab 2 maps already. So are we going to just rotate and be back on using the Collab 1 maps? Or are we finally going to get original maps for defensive battles? If it's the latter, this looks a lot more interesting to me. If it's just we're continuously recycling these 2 different maps that we have, then unfortunately defensive battles, they're going to stay squarely in the budget event territory, same as onslaught events. Even though with the onslaught events, like, they added the Astral Dragon battle, it's a little bit interesting. But yeah, these are more of a filler event. Typically, we'll see if anything breaks that trend this time around. That being said, they do have pretty good stories usually. So, next up, as announced in the most recent Dragalia Digest, Master Difficulty for Tartarus' Wrath will be available starting at 12 on November 11th. With this edition, players will be able to challenge Master Difficulty Agito bosses of all 5 elements. Cool. Tartarus' Wrath, not much to say about it. It's one of those Agito battles that I find is a lot easier in co-op. It's pretty hard to do solo, and it's just time consuming to do solo a lot of times. So it's not easy like some of the other ones to auto with a lot of gold Fafnirs. So yeah, I'm happy Master Difficulty is coming out. It's going to mean that the drop rates, the rewards for the lower difficulties improve as well. This Agito is one of my favorites as far as the weapons you can craft from it. Love how they look, love that they boost the dragon gauge. It feels very unique to this particular fight. And hopefully, I would like to see Tartarus in his second form the entire fight. I feel like one of the reasons they did the twins with the 2 forms, one was to make the fight last longer because of how explosive water can be as an element. But I think the other is they're twins, and they wanted to have a phase of the fight where you see them separately and individually. I think that was sort of important in their characterization. But with Tartarus, personally, I would like to see him start off in phase 2, but I would like to see the clones that he summons through the portals play more of a role. So maybe he's in his phase 2 form, but clones are coming out of the portals and they're doing moves from phase 1 at the same time that you're having to deal with his moves from phase 2. I think that could be really exciting. And besides that, like, some of the moves I expect to see more of are kind of like the quick reflex moves. So when Tartarus summons a laser beam behind you and you have to point it away from your group, I expect that one to kind of come up a good amount of the time. Another thing he does late in the fight that you don't get to see too often these days because of clear times being faster is he will summon beams that just are fixed at different points in the arena. like purple laser beams that occupy parts of the arena. I could see him doing stuff like that earlier. But yeah, Tartarus' Wrath, one of my favorite Agito battles. This is the one that I'm really still looking to sink my teeth into in co-op, since I did most of my Volk farming on the double drops, and the other Agitos I feel comfortable doing the auto clears on those. So I'm really looking forward to checking this one out when it comes out. Besides Tartarus, we also hear about New Year's Tidings, Clawful Caper raid event. It's going to return in mid-November. You'll have a chance to add the event-exclusive Adventurer Hanabusa to your team if you haven't already. Fans of this event will be happy to hear this year's New Year's event will also involve Hinamoto as well. If you're not familiar with Hinamoto culture and customs, I encourage you to play through this revival to learn more about our friends from the east of Alberia. Very, very cool. One of my favorite raid events as far as the rewards go. It felt pretty satisfying to do this raid. You fight against Ibisu, and Ibisu goes fishing. There are different fish that will come out of his basket or bag, and they vary in color, and the color indicates the rarity of the drops you can get from them. So whenever you would get legendary drops from this, it would feel really satisfying, like to chase down those fish and get the drops. Yeah, I like this event a lot. I'm not crazy about Hanabusa or Chitose, but I do love Mitsuhide and Nobunaga, so I am partial to them, especially Mitsuhide. I like sleepy characters for some reason. I also like Yaten, just like very laid-back characters, so they're some of my favorites around. Mitsuhide, hopefully her banner comes back because they just announced the event here, but not the banner. As for the first New Year's raid, if you remember, back in 2019, they brought back the event in June, but the banner was brought back in May. And then at the end of the year, they brought back the event a second time in December, and on the Clawful Caper New Year's banner that came in 2020, they just included the previous year's New Year's characters like Ieyasu, Addis, Sazanka, and Morishiten. And most recently, they added those same characters, the previous New Year's characters, to the Dream Summit. They were available via that. So all indications are that this will just be the event, but frankly, I think that this would be a good time to rerun the banner. A lot of us are run dry from the past month of summoning and going for some of the anniversary type banners. So it might be a good time to bring it out, and maybe people will spend some money on it from a development standpoint or Cygames standpoint. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a consideration. But it's going to depend on what else is happening in November. So let's continue reading on. Also announced in the most recent episode of Dragalia Digest, the Legend difficulty for Volk's Wrath will be available in late November. So finally we have a name, and we have confirmation it's late November. As it is, the new highest difficulty taking on this quest will not be for the unprepared or the faint of heart. But since it is designed to be more of a test of progression rather than a means of progression, I hope that players will be able to really sink their teeth into it. I love to hear that. I like test of progression type quests. What that signals to me is this is more of a one and done, I guess you could say, type quest, as opposed to the current difficulties of the Agito where you have to repeatedly play them to grind up materials. This sounds like something you're not going to play that much. You're going to do a few times, and when you come together to do it, it's going to be very satisfying if you're able to pull it off. That's my hope for this. I really don't want or feel the need for anything else to grind right now. I think the weapon bonuses have given us plenty to work on, not to mention the massive rupee deficits we find ourselves in. So if this really is a test of progression rather than a means of progression, I'm very hopeful about this. Legend's also a cool name. I like that name. Please note that in the interest of maintaining game balance, Legend difficulty quests may only be undertaken by teams of a certain element. Whoa, okay. For Volk's Wrath, Legend, only teams of flame-attuned adventurers may be used. Wow, that's very interesting. So that's probably going to make some people pretty happy and others unhappy. It's odd that if this is supposed to be difficult, you would think they would make you use water against wind, right? Because that's harder. Flame is already good against wind. So this is kind of weird. I was hoping to get to use wind against wind as well, because Ronzel is canonically Volk's nemesis. So it is a little bit weird to not be able to use Ronzel in this, and forcing you to use flame, which is the preferred element, if anything, should make it easier. Now, eventually Mitsuba made her way into some of the Master Volk clears and Veronica, but a lot of them also just used Marth and Emma back in the day. So I don't know about this. This is kind of an interesting one. I assume most people are going to be happy because people really, for whatever reason, people really dislike to see off element. But remember, off element is inherently going to be a weaker strategy in a lot of cases. Like, you're going to take more damage. It's not, I think people get the impression that it's like very easy to pull off. Some of the strategies definitely are easy to pull off, but you also have to spend a lot of time building and investing in these characters. It's not like you just get a Veronica and therefore you're able to do these things. Like, you have to have the right backline. You have to have already cleared a certain amount of times to even build an 8 unbound weapon. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of this, but I'm also not a fan. Like, we're going to just have to see how it goes. I like things to be open-ended because I feel like you can come up with creative strategies. And at the end of the day, like, I don't think it really hurts anybody, but it does kind of hurt. It hurts with the lobby creation, so I have to give it that. Like, it does hurt with the lobby creation when certain people are only looking for Mitsuba plus Veronica, as opposed to just being a more open-ended lobby. So I don't know if this will solve that. Like, maybe it'll still be very specific comps that end up emerging for this. But at the very least, well, I don't know. I was going to say the least, it would be cool if with your alliance or in a private room, you could just do whatever you wanted. Because, like, I want to clear this with Eleonora. I want to clear this with Pietro if I can. Sounds like it's going to be hard enough that that's not necessarily possible, especially with Pietro being water element. But, okay. I mean, I guess this is what it is. There is some disadvantage to that, too, of, like, letting people do different things in private rooms, because that would just mean that players who are able to, if there are cheese strategies that emerge, just, like, go off on their own and do them in private rooms, and then public lobbies suffer. So there's a lot to balance. I guess that on net, doing it with Flame only is going to make more people happy than disappointed, I guess. So, yeah, Flame is one of the stronger elements in Dragalia Lost right now. Maybe you could make the case that it's the strongest element at the moment, but I don't know. It's sort of just the nature of Volk. Like, Kayan having all these shields kind of effectively thwarts some of the pure raw power of the shadow element, but Volk, you can kind of wail on him unimpeded with Flame. Water's still a very strong element just by nature of Ayahan de Toha and them being sort of relatively squishy to a lot of the water strategies. So, well, this is certainly a change, so hopefully that makes players happy. Future updates. If you watch the latest Dragalia Digest, then you may remember mention of exciting news. Yes, I was waiting for this. To be revealed in early November. Alright, so I'm thinking it's going to be like a collab or something. Oh, well, you won't have to wait much longer, as we'll be sharing further details soon. Stay tuned to the Endgame notification board and official Twitter account. Alright, so I guess we don't get any information about that. Early November, but today's November 1st, so it's a little too early. So the fact that this is getting its own announcement, I don't know. I mean, is this a collab? Is it a collab rerun? Like, it feels like it. It feels like they're putting a lot of clout into this one announcement, or it's on that level at least, so I guess we'll find out in the next few days here. When do you think early November ends? Is early November like through the 14th and the 15th becomes mid-November? I guess we'll say that, but I think I'm expecting to know about this before like the 7th or the 8th, like in the first week of November. Hopefully we find out soon. The Wyrmprint quality of life features mentioned in last month's edition of This Month in Dragalia Lost will be added in an update in late November. First, you'll be able to register a group of Wyrmprints as a set so you can easily swap sets between adventurers. The optimized feature will be tweaked so it does not exceed any ability value limits when choosing the optimal Wyrmprint combinations. Second, the stored feature will be revised to better match the specific effects that Wyrmprints now possess. For example, you'll be able to easily identify Wyrmprints with abilities that increase skill damage, sort Wyrmprints by affinity, and view only Wyrmprints of a particular affinity. Finally, a text entry field will be added to the edit teams and treasure trade for Wyrmprint screens that allows you to directly input the name of Wyrmprint or an ability to quickly find exactly what you're looking for. Okay, all good changes. Yeah, we've been hoping for these since version 2.0 came out. I've kind of gotten used to the new system, but these quality of life adjustments will be nice. It does take me a while to scroll through sometimes and find the Wyrmprint. The biggest thing I find is when I add new Wyrmprints to my collection, like, I get used to, at some point, just by how frequently I play this, like, I get used to seeing a Wyrmprint, let's say on the far right. When I add a new Wyrmprint to my collection, that Wyrmprint might slide down and now be on the far left of the next row. That is the thing that continuously trips me up when I'm searching. It's like, I know relatively the part of the screen to look in. Like, that's how much I've had to spend sorting through my Wyrmprints and building teams and everything, so I've kind of gotten accustomed to it. But all of these sound like very positive changes in my opinion. Besides the Wyrmprint changes, the Fractured Futures and Forgotten Truths raid events are deeply connected to the heart of Dragalia Lost lore and play a vital role in explaining the overarching story. Given their importance, we want to be sure that new players are not left out of the loop, so we plan to make solo play versions of these quests for use in the Compendium. Wow, so we finally find out how raids are going to enter the Compendium, and it's through solo play variants. That is pretty interesting. I was hoping for raids to kind of come back, and they had announced Time Attack. I thought that they might combine raids with Time Attack as a way of bringing back the gameplay experience of the raids and doing Time Attack on content that wasn't as restrictive or exclusive as the Endgame content. So I felt like that could be a way to bring back the co-op gameplay and have a reason for having all the raids back at once or something like that to concentrate the player base, because the big problem with just sticking raids in the Compendium is the co-op lobbies may not fill if you just have that many raids going on at once or available at once. So this is a pretty reasonable solution. The fixed stats quest that they've been doing is a reasonable workaround in my mind to let people enjoy the raid battles often and alone. So I'm glad more content in the Compendium also probably means more permanent rewards available. So if both of these get added this month, that's another source of Wyrmite and potentially another source of other rewards like the emblem rewards. And maybe it even means that we'll have Audric and Mordecai available on a permanent basis. The interesting thing here is raids work differently now than they did in the past. So Mordecai, for example, he's a character you could 50 node for free by playing the event when it was live, whereas Audric was not. Audric was a character who, instead of the essences, you had parallel Zodiarch in his event. And that was actually a really big advantage for Mordecai. It's a huge Eldwater savings for players. It means that you can get a Blade Co ability readily available. Whereas with Audric, if you really want to use him and he is a fun character to use, you have to probably promote him, maybe build up his co-ability circles or nodes on his mana circles, and that is a very steep investment compared to Mordecai. So I would hope that they bring everything toward the conviction system like Mordecai had, and you can get Audric powered up that way as well. I think that would be a real benefit to newer players, to have these powerful characters built up, readily available to add to their collection. But who knows? They may not even put those characters actually in the Compendium version of the quests. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But definitely a good set of 2 raids to start things off with that. That's for sure. Those are really good raids. A new series of high difficulty bosses to succeed the Agito is coming next year. Okay, so no December release like we got with Volk. Battles in the Agito Uprising incorporated a transformation mechanic in which the bosses began their fights as humans and transformed into even more powerful beasts as the battle raged on. And the next series of bosses will similarly include a never-before-seen mechanic designed to keep players on their toes. Fascinating. So, no idea what it could be. I mean, transformation's kind of like the obvious thing that would come to mind, but if they're saying never-before-seen, then maybe it's not transformation. So, I don't know, maybe it's like, do you know in Smash Ultimate how they added the thing where you can swap between like one stage to another stage in the middle of the battle? Maybe it's like a stage swap thing or something. Yeah, I don't know though. I think if we think it's the sibling fights, like it would make sense that they shapeshift into their dragon, or maybe they fight alongside their dragon. So maybe it's more like the twins where there's 2 bosses, but that is a mechanic we have seen before. So hard to say. Starting at 12 on November 4th, the Alberian Battle Royale will be available, and it's going to be available from every Wednesday to every Thursday. This time, players will transform into Cupid, a dragon with a healing skill. Midgardstormer's powerful attacks have helped many a player claw their way to victory, but now that healing is available to all weapon types through this dragon, it'll be interesting to see how the flow of combat changes. We plan to add additional elements to the Albarian Battle Royale and adjust its rewards in updates this month and the next. Good to see Albarian Battle Royale mentioned. I was wondering what was going to happen with that because they did announce Season 0 is going to continue the rest of the year, and that said to me that they got a lot of insight from how people were actually playing it, and they want to make some tweaks to it to start off the new year. So I assume they're aware that most players go in with the intent to die off quickly, queue up again, get rewards, and just clear out the treasure trade. And I'm thinking that they're probably wondering how they can fix that or adjust that for the new year. As of now, they're switching to Cupid. Probably a good call because Midgardstormer's dragon skill, being able to just afflict somebody else and then they can't shapeshift and you can, and you become Midgardstormer. It was a way to really dominate end battles when you're only a few characters left. So like, it makes sense to me that they would want to try a different dragon here. I do kind of wish you could kind of pick your loadout as far as the dragon. Like, I think that would kind of make it more fun, but it's also balanced right now, and that might take away some of the balance aspect or require a lot more development resources to maintain balance on. It's an interesting mode. I had planned on making a video about it before the month of October ended, but I started working on putting it together yesterday and I realized it was already closed yesterday. So I should have done it on Friday where I got together more footage for that. But do have some opinions to share. I'll probably try carve out some time November 4th so I can make sure that I play it with Cupid and then try out some of the different weapon types, and eventually I will definitely make a video dedicated to the Albarian Battle Royale. It's a pretty interesting mode in principle. I like that it's not dependent on your progression in the game, but there are some issues with it, with players not really needing to participate at all to get the best benefits. So besides the Albarian Battle Royale, the last thing is just the gift that we get for this month. 5 million rupees, 20 exquisite honey, 10 4-leaf clover. Seems good. Not a bad gift at all, and the next installment is coming on December 1st. So that is going to do it for this month in Dragalia Lost, everyone. I am very curious about what the exciting news is that's coming in early November. I have to think that it might be a collab. Maybe it's still possible that we're going to get a Hyrule Warriors collaboration. That would probably be the dream. That consideration, that possibility, is why I am not right now going hard for Gala Reborn Poseidon or for Lapis. If we find out between now and the end of the banner what the news is and it's actually not that, maybe it's like Time Attack or something, then I will probably consider summoning more on this banner, but definitely going to wait until the end to see. Let me know what you thought about this month in Dragalia Lost in the comments below. Once again, that is going to do it for today, everyone. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.